In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in black and white emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
There is something happening inside of you right now, and it has been happening for years. It is quiet, it is consistent, and most of the time, you don't even know it's there. It's not a thought, it's not a choice, it is a pattern, an emotional blueprint written into you long before you ever had the words to describe it. And tonight, we're going to name it, face it, and begin the work of changing it. Here on America in Black and White, we don't run from the hard conversations. We run towards them. Because this show exists for every Black man and woman who has ever been told by their family, by their community, by the culture that raised them, that their feelings are luxury they cannot afford. For every brother who swallowed his grief and called it strength, for every sister who held everyone else together while quietly falling apart, for every leader who performed confidence while carrying wounds that had never been given a name. Tonight is for you. We're living through a mental health reckoning in Black America, and it is so long overdue. The stigma is cracking, the conversations are opening, Black men and women are walking into therapy offices, sitting in support circles, downloading podcasts, and reaching for books that say, you don't have to keep repeating this story. That is an act of extraordinary courage to name your trauma, to take responsibility for your emotional world. To say out loud that the patterns running your life are not a life sentence, that is radical self-determination. And it is happening in our community right now in ways that should make every one of us stand taller. At the forefront of that movement are Black professionals who have committed their credentials, their careers, and their callings to this work. Licensed clinicians, educators, authors, coaches, and veterans who have looked at the emotional wreckage that silence produces and decided to build something better. These are the architects of a new emotional landscape for Black America. And tonight's guest is one of the most important builders in the room. He is a licensed clinical social worker supervisor, a board certified diplomat in clinical social work, a United States Air Force veteran who served for 23 years on the front lines of military mental health, a doctor of social work from the University of Southern California, an educator, a speaker, a podcast host, a founder, and an author whose work has been recognized by the United States Army itself, placed on the U.S. Army Commander's reading list. His books include Empathy Has No Rank, the 5-Button Reset Workbook, and his brand new release, The Gauntlet Within, dropping September 3rd, 2026, just days from now. And on November 1st, 2026, he launches the official clinical and professional coaching license program for his groundbreaking 5-Button Framework, a model that is quietly transforming the way clinicians, coaches, leaders, and ordinary people understand the emotional triggers that run their lives. America in Black and White, Season 4, Episode 137. Lean in, take notes. Tonight, you're about to be transformed. Please welcome my extraordinary guest, Dr. Raheem Lay. Welcome to the show, Dr. Lay.
Hey, that's amazing, man. Listen, I may have to use that for something of my own. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Let me make sure I'm in the. Am I all the way in the camera? Am I good? Or
yes, sir. You're good.
Okay, and you can hear me good. Okay, my camera was giving me fuzz. I was like, okay, I got to get this right. But how are you doing?
I'm doing just excellent, and thank you for being here.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is amazing.
Is there anything you'd like to say to our guest, to our audience before we get into the show?
Yes, and one of my greatest sports podcasters. I'm gonna say it my way, but he says it a different way. But I'm gonna say it my way. But I got it from him. So he's called the Film Guy. You got to go check him out if you are a sports fan. If you truly are a football sports fan, college football sports. But number one, if you learn anything from this show tonight, okay, you must like the video. Okay, if you believe that you know someone who would benefit from the information shared tonight, you must share this video. And if you are interested in not only learning about emotional intelligence, but learning about what we can do as individuals to take that emotional responsibility, you must subscribe to this channel. Well, you subscribe to my channel too, that's coming, but nonetheless, he says it much better, but nonetheless, I love when he says that, and I said I'm gonna steal it, I'm gonna copy it, so I'm using it on my platform as well.
Okay. Well, so as we get into the show, as we discuss, when I start the show, what I like to do is I like to give the audience the opportunity to learn more about you, the guest, and so I call this part your life story and your personal journey.
Okay.
So, Dr. Lay, before we get into the frameworks, the credentials, the books, take us back to the beginning. Where did you grow up, and what was the emotional landscape of your childhood?
Yeah. So, again, thank you so much for having me on. My name is Dr. Lay, or Raheem Lay, whichever. I grew up in Newark, New Jersey. I'm from Newark, New Jersey, born and raised. Graduated from school there. My family is there. More so South Jersey, North Jersey, North Carolina sprinkling, but nonetheless, I'm from Newark, New Jersey. And the emotional landscape, I would definitely say, was one that shaped me into the person I am today. A lot of it focuses on what I had from my framework, which was looking at issues of abandonment, issues of rejection. I was raised by my aunt, which is my mom's oldest sister, right? But my mom and my dad just was not in the right space to take care of my brother and I. My brother is 2 years older than me. So I don't know if it's like this in every state, but in Jersey, even if, at least back I'm 48 years old, so back in the 70s and 80s, and it may still go on today, I'm not sure, but in Jersey, even if you were raised by a family member, you could still fall into the foster care system. And so we were pretty much foster children growing up. And I think I had a lot of questions, just like anybody else growing up without their biological parents. I didn't realize it until I got in second grade. And I know that sounds like 7 years old. Like, how did you not know that? But I just didn't ask any questions, and I started to get curious behind, calling auntie, and my cousins living with me at the time, which is my aunt's children, letting me know that I'm their cousin, not the sibling like my brother. So just putting two and two together. But I will tell you this, though. I think I knew there was some other connection out there from a parent standpoint, if that makes sense. I couldn't explain it, definitely couldn't name it, but I just knew. And it was one interesting story. I shared this. It was one interesting story. I was about 4 or 5 years old. I remember this. My bedroom, my brother and I bedroom actually was linked to a balcony. And we used to sneak out on the balcony, it was shaky. Okay. So I understood why my aunt used to get so upset if we try to go out there. But I was in my room and I heard this lady's voice. And I kid you not, I'm not even joking, King. I knew I heard that voice before. So I snuck out of the bed, went outside. I went out on that balcony and I leaned over and the street light was on, but I could really only see the silhouette of this woman. But I kid you not, and I talk about this with my brother, I still believe that was mom, because her voice just sounded too familiar. And I just remember screaming, "Mom, mom," like that. And my aunt to get off that balcony, get back in the room. But I do remember, and she looked up and she couldn't say anything. She had to just get in the car and leave. So that was another thing too, with the foster care system, or at least this situation, my situation, she could not reveal that she was mom. We couldn't know that mom was coming around or anything like that, or my dad even, so it was a unique situation there. So I think emotionally, yes, dealing with the abandonment, dealing with the rejection, that started early on for me. And again, I wasn't naming it back then. And it's really why my framework is what it is today. So, but I grew up with my aunt all the way up to the age of 14. And then we went to live with my grandfather, which is my aunt, my mom's father. And I did hear at that time that my mom would come in and out of the house, of grandpa's house. So I was excited because I was like, oh, snap, I'll probably get to meet her, and I wanted to tell her that story. I truly think that was her. I believe that was her. But she did come around, but I rarely ever saw her. We did not reconnect until I was about 25. And then shortly after, she passed away of breast cancer. But nonetheless, lived with my grandfather from age 14 all the way through high school. And all the way through that time, one of the things that stood out to me in my yearbook, you get people to sign your yearbook. This is what we used to do. I don't even know if they get yearbooks or do that stuff anymore. But, your people used to sign your yearbook and you'll find out who you had a crush on, like if they really had the same. But one of the things that kept coming up, I kid you not, King, was you was always so serious. I was always told, I thought I was a class clown. I really thought that I was holding it down for the class clown section, but everybody was like, man, you was just always serious. You always moved you always looked like you had a purpose. Like this was bigger than you, like you had somewhere going. I mean, I was bigger than what was going on. And so I never got in trouble. I was not about that life. And in Newark, New Jersey, it's very easy to get caught up. Okay. But I did have a part of my time, and this is something I'm revealing here first time, but part of my time where living with my grandfather, there were times we didn't have nothing to eat. I mean, absolutely nothing. And, I ended up partnering or befriending a person who was of the street life, I would say. And he allowed me at times, back then we called it clocking. It's not called that anymore, but it was called clocking then. And at that time, for a sophomore year of school, there were instances where I went and made money that way. And yeah, it was marijuana. I mean, it is what it is. I get it, but back then that was a no-go. And there was a lot I learned in that short amount of time as well, because he ended up getting, narc ended up, coming up into our projects, and we lived in these high rise. Brick City is a brick city for a reason. We lived up in a high rise, and I remember just going down to his I used to use the fire escape to go down to he was like 4 floors below, and I hear all this rumbling. I hear all this just commotion. I look outside, and in Newark, you can tell a narc because of the tires on their car. Okay. And so I was like, no, it's no way, but he got taken, everybody in the house, including his mom. got taken. I ran back up to my apartment. I just stood there. I was like, that's it, I'm done, and I kind of just threw myself into sports. I had to use every distraction possible. But I grew up on, if anybody's watching this from North New Jersey, I grew up on Chancellor. I was with on Maple and Chancellor, where that was back then. You were known by blocks, not by this. It's different now. It's different. They don't even represent blocks like that no more. But Chancellor Ave was where it was, and so I just turned right then and there. It was like a light switch went off, and I just started to focus on the things that I had a little bit more control over. And I was gifted as an athlete, track and field in football and track and field. And I decided to stay committed to that. In school, I would say I did not get tested until I got into college, when I started to realize, academics is something that I can hang my hat on and be proud of. Whereas my school, I went to Weekway High School, and my school was more of a sports and fashion. That's what we were known for. That's what we were known for. And so, yeah, I think I took education way more serious when I got into college. But that was a turning point in my life, my sophomore year, 15 years old, going on 16, or I may have been 16 already. And I knew right then and there, like, okay, I got to do something else. Otherwise, same thing that happened to, him, it's going to happen to me. I kind of put two and two together, if you will. So that again was another, I think, a pivotal moment in my life to kind of change before I go down that road. But there was a sign of desperation. There definitely was this willingness, or not willingness, but this need for control, because everything else was chaos in my life. I didn't have many answers. So I saw these different buttons that I talk about in my framework. I saw these different things happening even in my life, and I just kept suppressing it. And before people, I know a lot of people commonly say men were never taught to express their emotions and things of that nature. I think men do a heck of a job expressing their emotions. I just think it's done the wrong way. When it comes to expressing emotions, you see it all the time. And so, and we'll get it, we can get into that, but nonetheless, I took my emotions, I kind of channeled it towards sports, channeled it towards relationships, just meeting people, sports, especially track and field. It afforded me the opportunity to go to different states, to compete against different people, to meet different people. And so my ability to learn exactly how the world works, it started rapidly increasing the more serious I got about sports, and ultimately it led me to college as well. So in a nutshell, yeah, that was my upbringing. And one thing I would mention too in that part of that, growing up in North New Jersey, many people around me were in that. We were kind of like, I'm Gen X, so we were in that new era, or that we were coming into that era of single parenthood, 80s, 90s kind of thing. So it was kind of the norm to see. It was nothing to see you raised by grandma, auntie, one parent, so I guess that's why I didn't realize it was eating me up with the curiosity as to like why that is. It just, I had other people to distract me from ruminating on it, I guess you would say, so that was just an interesting upbringing emotionally through that lens. Yeah, for me.
So that situation, that one situation that you noticed, that you saw, and you said it was a turning point.
Oh, yeah.
Was that the actual turning point that you decided that you was just going to change your life? Or was that the turning point that pointed you towards the social work and the dealing with the mental health situation?
Okay. So no, with the social work, my first encounter with social work was, I told you, I believe it was called Division of Youth and Family Services, DIFAS, in Jersey. We were assigned a social worker as a result of having being a foster child. So growing up with this social worker who would come by, I would say twice a month, I believe. He would check on us, see how we're doing. He would sometimes take us to Skate 22 would go skating. He'll take us to the arcade, which, interesting about that. I would go to the arcade and I would straight up sell my bus tickets. I would gamble bus tickets and earn more bus tickets by whooping people on Street Fighter, the original Street Fighter. I was so good at it. But I was like, and he used to come by like, what are you doing with those tickets and everything? Man, I was in there getting it in. So yeah, that was interesting. But that was my first encounter with social work. When I say turn my life around, it meant I had to deviate from my norm. I knew that this was the environment, but if I had to label it today, I would say it was important for me to become you're either going to be a victim or a product of your environment. And I think I chose to be a product in that I can speak to you about this now, and I wasn't the statistic, and I'm not making any excuses for it, but I can speak to it now. Like I'm a product of that, versus becoming a victim and using that same lingo and jargon to not pick myself up and do something with my life. So I would say that was that turning point where it's like, okay, I know not to go down this road, if you will. Interesting enough with the social work thing, of course, when I get into college, I went to Ole Miss, hotty toddy for Ole Miss, because I'm hoping we have a really good football season this year. But I went to Ole Miss, University of Mississippi, had a track and field scholarship. And I just remember them asking me, what do you want to major in? And the first profession that came to mind was social work. And it was only because I was raised around, I grew up and I had a social worker assigned to me. I honestly did not know. I thought that's what social workers were. If you could come in and put a smile on the kid's face and, get them out of the house once in a while, I was like, man, I could totally see myself doing that. Lo and behold, I did not know, salary, and I didn't know none of that stuff. So I went in like social work. That's what I want to do. And so that was my introduction into social work. I still didn't know what I wanted to do with it though, because I ended up loving policy. I ended up loving human behavior, which we call HUBSI. I started learning different parts about it, but I still didn't really know, is this what I want to do? And why none of it is talking about DIFUS or late Department of Children's Services. But that's what I was focused on. It's like, I want to do what he did, so that was my introduction to social work. But that pivotal moment to see my friends, home get ransacked. They took his mother, they took him. That woke me up, that is not what I wanted. And I ended up reuniting. It was, literally like almost 20 years later. I just went back to Newark and went to my old stomping grounds, and I saw him, and we just chatted for a little bit, man. And he just, he actually thanked me for a lot of different things. It was, it was just a, one-on-one talk, but it was interesting to see him. He had just gotten out like maybe 2 years before I saw him. This was 20 years later. So yeah, that was my wake-up call there for that.
So you've dedicated your life to understanding why people repeat the same emotional patterns. Was there a moment in your life, a personal reckoning, that first made you ask that question about yourself?
Oh, absolutely. And repeating those same emotional patterns, we're talking about behavior, right? And that behavior promotes a certain outcome, right? So in my life, when I saw different outcomes kept being the same, and this is talking about whether it's professional, personal, there were definitely times in my life where I felt like, man, this keeps happening. Why does this keep happening? Not even knowing that, when it comes to rejection or when it comes to abandonment, I may hold on a little bit tighter to, let's say, unhealthy relationships, whether it's family or friends, or even personal, intimate relationships, right? I will hold on a little bit tighter. And when it came to rejection, I would show a little bit more pride, a little bit more, not even assertive, aggression, and when I say aggressive, talking about whether I will completely dismiss a relationship, cut it off before it cuts me off, something like that. So yes, I saw that showing up repeatedly. And granted, when I was at college is an eye opener for a lot of people, especially when you move away from your norm So now you're forced to kind of connect with new people. And I ended up connecting, when I got to college, ended up connecting with a young athlete who was from Missouri. This was the first time I ever seen someone of the same age. We were both very young, but he was married.
Ooh.
Married and committed. Yeah. And I was shocked. I thought it was a joke, but I was shocked. And I connected with him pretty early on, in my career, just kind of watching the way he moved. And what was interesting, I think he was probably the first person that said what he lived. It was the same. And I was just at awe with that. And so I went into that relationship really being a student. I was like a neophyte. I was learning, how the heck are you in college, sophomores at this time, juniors or something like that, and and you have this other life, and I thought she was a girlfriend. Like, no, they were legitimately married. He was a Church of Christ Christian. He believed the Bible. He taught Bible study. He did a lot of things, but he never talked about these things. But he would just show up to track practice, does his work. He's in and he's out. He's not hanging around shooting the crap with a bunch of and it was just interesting. I was like, it's not making any sense, And when I started to tap into his life is when I started to realize, like, okay, this is where I started to realize, like, oh, I have to start taking accountability for my own responses to things, the way I'm seeing things, my belief system. And that is something interesting about belief system. People really, I think, struggle with. And as a clinician, I can tell you, I as a human being, I struggle with a belief as well. But typically, when you have a belief system, it is supposed to garner your behavior. It is supposed to lead your behavior, because what you believe, you have to self-validate your belief system, right? So if your belief system is what it is, then you ask yourself, okay, if that's what I believe, what behaviors in my life that I demonstrate or execute effectively every day to validate that belief, right? That's what he was doing the whole time. And he never, look at me, was none of that. He didn't care. He had a commitment to his spiritual belief system, his religious belief system, and to his family. And granted, to be fair, I don't know what was said behind closed doors between him and his wife and others. I'm going by what I saw with my own eyes, that I could not sit here right now today and be like, you know what, he was full of it, And so I saw that and I started to trust it. So, hey, let me go to church with you. And I was raised traditional Baptist. My aunt was traditional Baptist. And so I knew about religion. I knew about Christianity. I knew about being in the choir. I was in the choir, couldn't sing a lick, but she had us in the choir. I literally went to church for the cookies and chocolate milk. It was just what it was. And I remember that. And yeah, if we're being completely transparent and honest here, I'm gonna tell you straight up, that's the reason why I enjoy going to church. I knew we was gonna get hot cocoa. I knew we was going to get cookies, all that kind of stuff. But I was still in the church. I knew about it. But it wasn't until I met this individual in college and then Church of Christ. I didn't know much about Church of Christ, but I was like, is everybody here like him? Just wanted to see for myself, and I ended up enjoying it. I was going to church with him every Sunday, practically, unless we had track meets and stuff like that. But I would go to church with him, and he even baptized me there at Ole Miss at the Church of Christ, right in Oxford, and it was amazing. I just felt that I was literally going into a different direction, and that really, to me, that stood out the most. That I did that on my own, based off my own observation, my own curiosity, and then my own self-discipline, because I deviated a lot just in my. Now I wasn't ever a drinker. Truth be told, I didn't take my first drink. I was 32 years old when I took my first drink, and it was in Vegas. I mean, but get this, I know people gonna laugh at this. My first drink was an Amaretto sour.
Oh God!
I told the waitress. I'm sorry, I'm jumping around, but I'm bringing it back. But I told the waitress, that I wanted something that didn't taste like alcohol. And she was like, I got the perfect thing for you. And I went to a David Copperfield. It wasn't even real magic. It is what it is. But I had that one drink. That was my first drink. So I was not a partier drinker, none of that stuff in college anyway. But I'm talking about mentally and just how I talk to myself. That changed. You know, I was not so critical. I saw people differently too. Like I was actually speaking to people genuinely to get to know them. And that reputation kind of spread. I joined the FCC. It was FCA, I believe. It was like fellow Christian athletes. It's like all the athletes who, you know, you get together and you have that camaraderie, and you meet up in the dorm. I stayed at Kennard Hall. I don't even know if Kennard Hall is still there, but nonetheless, it was just a huge development for me in college as it related to, you know, finding my way, becoming my own person, taking those buttons and saying, man, I can't make excuses for these anymore, and then go hide when those buttons come out to show themselves. Couldn't do it. You know, I said, no, I got to fix this. And sure enough, it was because I had a different focus, different level of accountability. I was committing to something bigger than myself, you know, and that's the power of belief systems. And that's what I drew on as well. Not only in my private practice, but also with my framework, just really focusing on what a belief system really is and how it translates, because everybody is not religious. I totally get that. But we all got a belief system. We all believe in something, you know? So yeah, that's where that came from for me.
So you are a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, one of the most storied fraternities in Black America. What did brotherhood, service, and scholarship mean to you when you crossed, and how does that commitment show up in your work today?
So interesting here. One of the biggest things I learned, first being, granted, Ole Miss, New Epsilon chapter had came on right after I think I was like a junior or a senior by that time. But the brotherhood, as far as learning about what Alpha stood for, this actually happened before I got to college. So back in Newark, I told you there was a time when, yeah, I was doing things I wasn't supposed to do. It is what it is. I met a young individual, a young guy who he had the shirt on. And I didn't know how to read Greek letters and none of that kind of stuff. But the other thing that the Alphas were doing, they were at Seton Hall University. They would adopt a highway. So the highway, I would see them out there picking up trash that was on the side. I thought initially that it was a prison. I thought it was a reform or something like that. I had no idea that it was a fraternity. Then I saw one of the brothers over in my neighborhood. And I was like, yo, I know those letters because I see y'all on the highway. And so I thought it was like a detention center. And so he explained to me what the fraternity was and everything. And I'm like, what? You know, never heard of it before. Of course, fast forward, I get to college, I see those letters, right? And so before I even got into college, I saw, when I realized, like, man, they were just doing that because they wanted a clean streets, a clean highway, and all of these kind of things, just taking that initiative to kind of dedicate to their community, not caring who watching, you know, or anything like that. I'm always impressed by people who are doing because they know it's the right thing to do. And that's what Alpha really stood out to me, was like, they were doing because it was just the right thing to do. They didn't care who was looking. They weren't looking for no, hey, good job. None of that. It was just, this is the right thing to do. We see this is all trashed up and everything. We're going to get out here and we're going to do what we need to do. So that stuck with me. And it was like a no-brainer when I pledged. And so to me, yeah, ever since college, I knew for a fact, you know, if I needed to be a part of a brotherhood and being around strong men of all different flaws and all, when I say strong men, I'm talking about men that can sit there and look you in your face, tell you what it is. You know, we used to say your word is your bond. You know, that was my first introduction to a word is bond, in that somebody living it was an Alpha brother. So meeting with those guys, connecting with those guys and learning was huge for me, because it was other men who had something greater than themselves, belong to something greater than themselves. And you will see throughout my life, that was a reoccurring theme. Being an athlete, learning about religion, learning about Christianity, being married, joining the military. At first, I started off in the Army. I remember, I need to correct that as well. I did 9 years Army, 14 years Air Force. So 23 years total. But the 9 years Army, I was infantry. I was a fighter at that time. I didn't become a mental health provider until I got into the Air Force, right? But if you notice throughout my life, these different institutions I was a part of, these different institutions that said, hey, service before self. I was that. I became a believer of that very early on because it's something about it. There's something that's not only masculine, especially when you look at the brotherhood of Alpha Phi Alpha, is something that's very masculine, very peaceful, and very humble about serving community. Serving people when you're tired and you only got an hour to give, but you go give that hour in community service, educating other people. Like when you step outside yourself like that, you can't help but be humble, by those experiences. So that was the greatest initiative for me as it relates to Alpha and what it was and what it meant to me, that if I am going to pledge, if I'm going to be a part of an organization, if I'm going to be giving my time, my resources and things to it, I want to be about something of change. And that's really the D9, of course. All of it is there, but that was the first initiative I had when that initial contact is seeing those guys out on the highway, cleaning up the highway. It was priceless, and those pictures stuck. They stuck in my head throughout my life, because I saw that picture of them cleaning. I didn't see that guy with the shirt until, granted, I was now a sophomore, so that's almost 6 years. And I remember, I was like, yo, I know y'all, So yeah, that was my introduction as far as I knew for a fact it was going to be black and gold for me. And moving forward, and still to this day, I'm a life member. That's what it is.
So let's talk a little bit about Dr. Lay as the licensed clinical social worker.
Yes.
You hold both the LCSWS, that's licensed clinical social worker supervisor, and BCD, board certified diplomat in clinical social work.
Yes.
Walk us through what those credentials mean and what they represent in terms of the level of clinical expertise that's required to earn them.
Sure. So I have my bachelor's, my master's, and my doctorate all in social work. When I was in undergrad, speaking with my professors, I thought undergrad was going to be the last of it for me. I thought I was just going to leave from there and just go get a job, be as it may. And one of my professors, Dr. Moore, she was the first to put it in my mind as far as, becoming an independent licensed clinician, and having the responsibility of not only supervising, but being in a clinical practice, having the responsibility of leading people, having the ethical decision making and fortitude to go out there and do what's right by people, by your clients and things of that nature. So when I learned about her credentials and saw that she went and got a master's, and of course she got a PhD as well, that was probably my introduction to understanding, like, oh, okay, so it doesn't stop here. I can get a BSW, which I did from Mississippi. I did get the bachelor's, the license at the bachelor's level, which is a LSW, a licensed social worker. At least that's what it was back then. I don't know if it's still like that now, but I went and realized, like, okay, I need to get a master's if I'm going to do anything with social work, because I need that independent license. And so that was my motivation to actually join in the Army, which was, my legs paid for undergrad. I was not about to pay for graduate school. So I went into the Army so that they could pay for my master's. And I ended up going to the University of Tennessee in Knoxville for my master's in social work. And then I started to understand exactly what the LMSW, which is a licensed master social work, but then you have an LCSW, which is a licensed clinical social work, what makes you an independent licensed practitioner, right? And so that's what I wanted, and that's what I knew eventually I would have to get. And so at that level, you are now independent. You can practice independently if you wanted a private practice. It really shows, one, that you held the highest licensure in your related field. But then I went a step further some years ago, and I got the supervision status because I wanted to get into supervising up and coming master's level social workers. I wanted to prepare them as well, because the test, the exam, 3 hours long or 4 hours long. I've taken it. I took it some time ago, but that test is intimidating. It is. It doesn't really focus on social work, if that makes sense. And I know other licensed, clinicians will know this as well, but it doesn't focus on social work. It was so complex, and it was how you answer the questions. And I know I struggled with it, and I was like, you know what? I definitely do not want to see others, struggle like that, because that was a really tough thing. And then the other part behind the supervision status as a independent license holder was the fact that we're the gatekeepers to this profession. We want individuals to understand ethically what you can and cannot do, but we want them to know it like the back of their hand, right? We want you to think about, your license, and make informed decisions off of it, based off of it, versus going off of your emotions or going off of how you feel and things of that nature. So that is another responsibility that you hold at the clinical level, that when you get out there and you're engaging with people, and you're responsible for people's lives. I think it is very important to hold yourself to a higher level, to be able to work with said individuals or said populations, and do it honorably, do it within a scope, and do it where you have structure around you. So getting the license independently, it meant a lot. And the third thing was, there weren't a lot of so-called Black males who were licensed independently as clinical social workers either. Now, granted, so-called Black people only make up like 7% of the social work profession at the master's level. So we're very small in and of itself, and I wanted to be one of those individuals. My BCD, my board certified diplomat, that focuses on clinicals as well, but that shows that you have the highest, or one of the most prestigious certifications when it comes to social work. It is something you get when you look to get in when you're in the military as a clinical social worker. Not only that, they do pay you extra for that. So I would say that was probably a driving motivation as well, because you got like $300 extra if you if you qualified and you went to pursue your BCD license. And I maintain it to this day, even though I'm done with the military, because it actually means more than that. It carries a level of credibility as a licensed practitioner as well. And so I wanted to keep those credentials with me throughout my journey as a clinician, as a life coach, as a professor or instructor as well. So yeah, that was my motivation behind obtaining both the LCSW, the LCSWS, and the BCD.
I am so proud of the structure, and the structure that you have and that you carry, and you have that wherewithal that you went level, and you're still ascending. Can you tell us, as you're doing all of these wonderful things, how are you able to maintain your regular life and your professional life at the same time? Because you're doing the thing. And so people just need to see You're the great example.
Look, I like that you said, how do you maintain? Well, I got a lovely wife. I have a lovely wife. Shout out to my wife for a second. I'll be honest. We have 3 amazing children. My wife is military. My wife's an AKA as well, so I think that's important too. But no, but I have a lovely wife. So what I mean by that is, when it comes to time management, which is very important. If you're saying you're going to do something, I do believe you have to go all in, but you can't get it all at one time. And so when me and my wife and I have talk time, like 9:00, once the kids go down, we give ourselves a half an hour just talking. It's kind of just like a reset, if you will. And one of the things she told me was like, I see how excited you get when you're talking about certain things. I see that that look in your eyes kind of thing. And she told me this a long time ago, and she was like, just go for it. If that's what you want to do, go for it. Now, that's within reason, because I am a father first. I'm a husband first, and then I'm a father. I believe I try to operate that way. Let me say that. So I do take care of those things with a little bit of encouragement from my wife. Is like, so she'll tell you, oh, if she was here right now, she'll tell you, I have this agenda where if I really want to get to like, oh my God, I really want to write this, or if a chapter, especially of the Gauntlet, the chapter that I'm really like excited about, I want to get back to writing it because the thoughts in my head and stuff like that. I'll go downstairs and I don't even know if I should say that, but but what I would do is like, okay, so I'll rope her back and I'm like, man, how you doing? You doing good? She's like, yeah, I'm good. I'm doing good. She was like, what is it? What you want? I was like, I'm just coming to check on you. I don't want anything. And so then I moved to this whole, man, I got this interesting title. What do you think about? You know what? I need to go write that down. And she's like, go ahead, And so I come up here and I write down. So basically what I'm saying is like, because I have a partner who understands this drive that I have, this motivation to want to get this information out there, to help as many people as possible when it comes to managing emotions, and what my focus is, my interests are with that. She realizes like the importance of it. Now, I'll be honest, in the beginning, I used to get salty if I had to sacrifice that time to tend to something, whether it was cleaning up something, we got a schedule of cleaning up and everything, right? So if I had to clean up something or something like that, that was in the past. Until my wife sat there and told me, she's like, it's hard for me to really ask you for help with something because I could see your face and I see you would rather be doing something else. I didn't like that she peeped that. I didn't like it. I didn't want that to be her vocabulary either, So it's a time management thing. So I do wait until the kids are down. I wait till my wife is asleep. And yeah, I'll come in here right at this computer and I'll put a timer on. Sometimes I go over. No, most times I go over it. But I give myself an hour and I just hone in. I just focus. This is really years in the making that I had to sacrifice. Like, I got to put that to the side because my daughter needs me to show up here and they need to show me, I need to do these things because I did not have that growing up. So I knew if God gave me that opportunity to not only be a father, but to be a husband, I got to do something. So time management works best. And the things just start falling into play. So when I got out of the military, I retired in 2023. When I retired from the military, I did have that time to like, man, maybe too much time. I was just breaking stuff and fixing it on purpose. No, I wasn't doing that. But I just had time to really get it in. And something I learned in my doctorate program, excuse me, it's a funny story behind doctoral and where I got that name from. I know that's not the name. I know that's not the word, but it's a funny story. I got to tell you offline on that because I'm not going to air it out here, but you're going to laugh when I tell you where I got that from. But when I was in my doctorate program, I had bad study habits. I always had bad study habits. I didn't wait to the last minute, but I would wait to night, like 1 o'clock. So something about me, I would sleep for 3 hours, 4 hours, and I would wake up, but I had the clearest concentration. And so I would be up from 1 to about 4, and then I would sleep again, from like 4 to 7. It was weird. I know. I don't know why it was like that. I don't know why I felt more focused. And so I was doing that even when I was setting up my different initiatives here. I would just wait. I would sleep it all. I would wake up and I would just feel I'm ready, and I'll come in here 1 in the morning, get to typing or something like that. So after a while, yes, it all is coming together now, but I was taking one piece at a time. It was first the workbook. No, it was first Empathy Has No Rank, because I wanted to leave the military, with that, because I know I wasn't returning. But it was Empathy Has No Rank, and it was the workbook. And that workbook I started in 2024. I just launched that workbook in 2025. I started that workbook 2023. I just launched that workbook in 2025. So it takes time. It just all looked like it all came out this year, but no, the gauntlet, I've been working on that since the end game. But I wanted to give people, like, this is what it is. This is what I see. And so nonetheless, it's all about time where I can get it in for the most part and still maintain visual on the other responsibilities I have. Yeah. But you can do it. It is that sacrifice that I used to get tired of people saying that stuff on, especially, entertainers and all, like, man, it takes sacrifice, hard work, sleep when you die. I ain't doing that. I wasn't doing that. I wasn't doing that. But they are not lying when they say you got to be focused. You cannot be distracted or nothing. You really got to be focused, and you get it in. When you see it done, you're like, oh, snap, I did that, So I'm really, really excited about, where everything is going,
So social work and therapy are often misunderstood by the general public. How would you explain to someone who has never been in therapy what a licensed clinical social worker actually does?
So, and this is confusing with social work in and of itself, because social workers, we have our foot in everything. You'll find social workers as so many different professions, so many different titles. And so one would say we're stretched thin. But I would have you know, the majority of mental health providers in America are social workers, clinical social workers, licensed clinical social workers. And the biggest thing about therapy, I think the misconception, two things. One, if you got to see, you really have to know where you're getting your information from, or at least your ideas from, or your perspective about therapy in and of itself. Our job is not to solve your problems. And I know you've heard this from therapists before, but our job is to help you arrive at that conclusion the best way, the safest way we possibly can. Right now, again, this is about full transparency. So I'm gonna give you the honest truth. Because of my upbringing and what I've been through, I do believe that I was drawn to clinical social work in such a way to try to figure out things on me as well. Right. Even though in my mind, I'm thinking, man, I want to help solve other people's problems. I did come in with that theory because I thought, TV is going to make it look sexy. So I thought, like, you do with the laying on the couch, and you're sitting there taking the information down and you're helping them, get through these obstacles of life. But that was far from the truth. So when you're thinking about therapy, one, you go and seek. I think that's amazing. The fact that a person goes and seeks therapy, to me, that shows awareness. That means you recognize that something's wrong in your life. That's a win-win. Bring it in. That's why I'm always, for my clients, I always thank them for not only choosing me, but I also thank them for getting up, getting dressed, coming out your door. You had many times to block this opportunity, and you took advantage of it. So that awareness piece is huge, and that's what I like to drive off of in my sessions as well. Let's focus on awareness and let's look at what that looks like for you. So it's helping individuals arrive or solve their problems themselves, right? We are more like a guide, if you will. I think of it like the driving test, and you have the coach, not the coach. What do you call them? The driving examiners, I guess.
Yes, they're the examiner.
Right, and then they tell you, they give you a command, and you figure that out, in your way of unpacking or processing whatever it is that's going on. You get to explore those things in a controlled environment, and then you have somebody who is licensed, right, and who's clinically sound to help get you through that, right? So, in a nutshell, that's what therapy is really about. I mean, granted, you got all different types of modalities, you got all different types of treatment that you can utilize depending on the person's situation, right? Every person is unique. But this is another thing that I need people to recognize too when it comes to therapy, or when it comes to even mental health. Let's go with mental health here. And because mental health is a hot topic in social media. Everybody believes that they are mental health professionals, I see. And granted, I get it because of the vocabulary. Once you learn the vocabulary, you could package it and make it sound really good and all that good stuff. You start selling people these fake dreams and stuff. But at the end of the day, when it comes to really focusing on therapy, a lot of it has to do with, are you willing to trust the process, for one, right? Recognizing, again, that awareness, recognizing that, yes, there's something going on with me that I need help with. If you're looking for validation, if you are looking to be right about something or about situations, if you will, to me, when the person is a good candidate for therapy, it's because that person came in there recognizing, I am the problem. I'm my own worst enemy.
Yes.
And I need to unpack that. Yes. That is a good candidate for therapy, right? If a person comes in there because, yes, it looks good, society, just to hear you say, I'm in therapy, or I have a therapist. This is huge, first and foremost, because it shows that stigma is really moving away, right? Because people are willingly coming out and saying they got a therapist and everything. But what exactly does that mean, that you have a therapist, right? Because the change behavior is going to come from your own beliefs and what you find to be most supportive for you, right? So, but the first part of it is recognizing it is my issue, it's my dilemma, it's my button. That's the part that I have to try to get help in unpacking. Okay. So now unpacking real quick. When people say unpacking or processing, that is you recalling. That is you becoming a good historian about whatever it is, if you're being honest about it, right? Because you're only focusing on you're only focusing on me, right? On yourself. If you're sitting there mentioning everybody else and what they're doing to you, then I already know. And I've seen this many of times in sessions. I already know now is not the time to provide that insight. Let me just wait. It may take 3 sessions, right? But I have to recognize, or at least bring awareness to them, like, man, you keep arriving at that same pattern of behavior. Like somehow you're the same common denominator in this, without coming out and saying, you're the problem, right? There's no need to come at them like that, Right. But once they recognize, like, I see that I'm in the center of all of this. Every domain of my life, I'm affecting in some way, shape, or form. But I am the common denominator. Now the work is going to begin. That is when the real work actually happens. And to me, that is the epitome of therapy.
You just, I mean, those are some things that I think a lot of people need to really think about, because there's such a deep dive into that, because that's accountability, and a lot 100%. Of people cannot be accountable, because when you put the responsibility back on particular people, it's not everybody, but particular people, especially the ones that like to throw out this blame. You made me do this. You made me do this. You made me do this.
Yes.
How in the hell do these people make you do anything?
That's already here. Could you imagine the type of power somebody has if they can make you feel a certain kind of way?
Okay.
Could you imagine if that was actually real?
Right.
What happens typically is you are in a situation. An individual may say or do something. Now, the first thing your brain is going to do is recall, where have I seen this, felt this, heard this before? If it's tied to a bad experience, a certain emotion is going to come to validate that.
Yes.
Now it's that you made me feel. But here's the trick to it all. If you and I, King, are sitting there and we're listening to somebody talk to us, we're both there at the same time, hearing the same information, right? That person says something to the both of us, but you had a certain response emotionally from what they said.
Right.
I did not. So guess what? Your response to what they said, let's say it came out harsh. Now I look at you, I say, King, why are you doing that? Yo, wasn't that big deal? Why you tripping? Okay. And your mind, see, I didn't have the experience. See, I didn't lock it. I took in what they said. I'm like, okay, all right, but you took it. Oh, I heard this before. So-and-so used to say this. Now, your response is totally different from me. If they had that much power over our emotions and responses, we both should have reacted the same way. We both should have reacted the same way. You see? Right. But people do trauma bond. They trauma bond, so they literally attach to people who have shared experiences. Guess what? Outcomes would typically be the same. So when we see this on TV where two people are responding the same, I guarantee you, if you was to unpack their friendship, you would see that they are literally mutually together because from bonding, trauma bonding, oftentimes. We have the same devastations, if you will, that took place, right? And so I focus on not only emotional accountability, I focus more on emotional responsibility. Because accountability is, I can account for the role I played in a situation. My bad, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Okay. Responsibility is accountability. My bad, I'm sorry for doing what I'm doing. Moving forward, here's what I'm going to do in response. Moving forward, in order for me to trust that you are in my best interest, I need to see behavior change. That's responsibility. This is what I'm doing in response to taking accountability. So when I hear people say, yeah, you're right, that's my fault, I did that. And then you come 2 weeks to do the same thing, how many times you want to apologize?
Exactly.
How many times you want to take account? I don't want to hear no more accountability. I want to see the responsibility. What are you going to do in response? I need to change behavior in order for me to believe in what I'm seeing. Okay? That part, I think, whether it's social media, whether it's movies, Disney, they need to add that part. And sometimes they do. When you watch certain movies, you see somebody do something egregious, and then they change after the apology, you see them doing a different behavior, they change their direction. That's the person recognizing I am the issue. That is powerful. That is powerful. Nobody can control that.
Right.
Not social media, not no influence. Nobody can control when a person takes personal responsibility for how they feel. Right? Do you know what the emotional color is?
I know they said some of them. Now, if I'm not mistaken, you can correct me, but I do know that I hear people mention the color orange and the color yellow and the color green. They actually, one is calming, one is like excitometer, and the other one,
Oh, I know what
it's supposed to be. But yeah,
no, I know what you're talking about. I meant, let me be more specific here. The actual universal color for emotions is green.
Okay.
Green, right? So when you think of movies like The Incredible Hulk, see what happens when his emotions get the best of him?
Yes.
Right? There was a movie that Jim Carrey played back in the 90s, I believe, called The Mask. He would put this green mask on, wild out, take that mask off, have all this regret. Like, what have I done? Right? That's what our emotions. That's why I say when it comes to men expressing emotions, yes, men do that all the time. Right? So the ones you see in prison, 6 feet under, on strung out, if you will, alcohol. Oh, trust me, men are expressing emotions, domestic violence, you name it. They're expressing their emotions all the time. The thing is, you're supposed to respect your emotions, not give them power. Wow. You're supposed to process, you're supposed to respect the emotions, right? So if you look at the Incredible Hulk in the most recent movie of his, he found a way to harness the Hulk in him. Even when somebody hits him, flips him, says something, does something, he said, it comes out when I want it to.
Right.
That is how we're supposed to be managing our emotions, okay? In a way that we have self-control. But the first thing is we got to acknowledge it. Second thing is we take accountability. Third thing is we take responsibility. Once we learn what it is we're actually responding to, people like to respond to the trigger. That's why in my book, I say triggers expose, buttons decide, okay? Triggers expose, buttons decide. Triggers are going to expose with the buttons that you already have. They're there already. So you have to literally see that button, recognize, oh snap, I can tell my button just got pushed. Awareness, right? Now something has to happen, which they call it a pause, but right there you have to recognize what is really happening here. What is that button being pushed for? Is it really because she just said something smart? Really? Right? Or is it because the same thing she said, the button that was pushed, was something that reminded you of a beef that you actually should have took care of from your past, though? Right? So if you want to think about it in this way, that button is linked to that child, what they call it the inner child. And I'm putting it in quotation because it's no such clinical thing, but inner child in you. As soon as that button is pressed, that inner child comes through and says, yo, I'll come and fight your battle. It's going to destroy, say some things, do some things, whatever have you. Then it's going to take his behind right back in there. Like, I'm done now. You are there.
Okay. Look, I've come out, done my thing. Now I'm going back in.
I'm going back in. Destruction. Now the real you, right? The real you is coming out is like, oh my God, what have I done? Hey, I'm sorry. Regretful, remorseful, all of these kind of things. We want to now try to avoid that from ever happening. To where, as you say, no, I don't need you. I'm going to sit with this emotion for a second because I know it's the button. I just need to reset it. I'm going to reset this button. I'm going to take control back. I'm going to set my boundary. And I'm going to be assertive, not aggressive, if you will. And there is where you start to see real change because now your outcome is different. So the universe is even saying, oh, snap, I gave you these experiences to train you, to make you better. I never gave you these experiences to break you. Mm-hmm. That's not what our experiences do. We, humans, will take it and judge it, good or bad. We look at an experience, we judge it, give it good or bad. If we say bad, we got to bring all of those emotions that we associate with bad.
Yes. Oh, wow.
We're doing it ourselves. We said, man, we're going to do it. We're going to do the destruction. And it says, once the universe says, yo, you handled that, all right, I got to bless you with that. But as soon as you go and let the kid come and do it, hey, I gave you that to bring awareness to you. Now I got to make you pay for that. Right. That is how the universe works. Whether you call it karma, what comes around goes around, I don't care. But when you take emotional responsibility, you are not only respecting yourself in the situation, but you're respecting the universe, you're respecting the people that you came in contact with. That ain't no mistake. That's another, King, let me just say this real quick when it comes to the mistake and the poor. As adults, most of the time we make poor choices. We don't make mistakes. A mistake is making a decision most of the time that you have no idea what the outcome could be. That is a mistake. And trust me when I tell you, that is a child, right? When she's 8, when she was 2 years old and she touched that daggone eye on our stove back in our house in Texas, if you will. The first time she did that, attempted to do that, she had no idea what heat was. She didn't know, you know? And then luckily she did. I caught her before, but she felt the heat of it though. And that was enough. That my response, I'm consoling her. Oh my God, you're all right. I'm kissing all on her cheek and everything, right? I kid you not, King. A couple of weeks later, that girl tried to go and touch that daggone thing again, hoping for a different outcome. King, I get chills thinking about it because I saw it in real time what a poor decision and a mistake looks like. She actually thought it was going to be a different outcome. Maybe it was just that one time. What? Even my response was different. Hey, what are you doing? Baby, you know better. She was still the same age.
Yes.
But at a young age, we start learning right from wrong at a very young age. So when I hear adults talk about a mistake, I challenge it. Was it really a mistake or was it a poor choice? See, a poor choice we learn from. A mistake, we sit there, we could use that as an excuse all day. I didn't know any better. As adults, there's some things we don't know what the outcome could be. I get it, potentially. But most of the time, most choices we make, we know exactly this could go right or left. What's the probability? And what made me go left in the first place? We have to examine all of that because when you try to take responsibility, when you want to change behavior, you got to know the steps as to what led you to that. It's not an impulse of 0 to 100. Are there impulsive people? Yes. But for most people, okay, there is a step in that process. There's something that they're used to shutting down when it comes to emotions. That's why I say you have to respect emotions. If you shut your emotions down, you gave it power because you just buried it. So what you suppress is going to come out in behavior. It's just a matter of time before it comes out.
Right.
So I say respect emotions. Do not give it power. But understand that you're making poor choices and you're making poor choices that's tied to something else. Let's figure that out. Get this though. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
Well, I was about to go on the tangent with emotional intelligence and why I came about with emotional intelligence and empathy and all of those things. But it was because that very thing, I needed to change the vocabulary, the lingo for something that we already explore in clinical practice without using clinical talk, clinical jargon, something that just muddles when I use clinical jargon to explain something, oftentimes it dilutes the relatability. You see, I didn't have no clinical jargon when I was going through it, right? So amongst my colleagues, yes, let's get it. We can talk that stuff because they know what we're talking about. But the average person, absolutely not. Emotional intelligence, EQ to me is just as or even more important than IQ in all actuality. Because the one thing that I found in my 48 years of being on this life, the one thing I noticed, and even what I yearned for, was human connection. When you talk about human connection, we have to be able to relate on a human level. We make poor decisions. We sometimes make mistakes. We have to own up to those things. These are all human connected frameworks, if you will, that we all can sit and relate to. We all can label. We all can identify. We have the vocabulary for it. So that's me in an attempt to meet the people right where they are. Okay. I get the clinical side and I respect it. I have it. I love being a clinician because it's the deeper meaning, right? But when we're talking about reaching the global majority, a lot of people ain't gonna have access to mental health. Okay.
That is true.
Office, right? They're not paying that money, or whatever have you. And I'm on the low end. I'm $130 an hour. Okay, compared to I know some things. Okay?
Yes, exactly.
Clinicians pass, what they pricing and stuff. So I'm like, you know what? There's another way to reach the global majority because we're being exploited. Your emotions, anytime you are sitting there acting out your emotions, you're being exploited. And us living in a capitalist society, for sure, we're going to look at what we can earn or learn from that and what we can exploit. It is just the truth. It's a human thing we have in the West, I would say, right? So you have to own your emotions. It has to be you. You cannot give them to nobody else. You just can't.
Wow. So, we'll probably let's stick with this, but I want to round this a little bit, if you don't mind,
Okay. Okay.
because when I say I want to round this, it's like, um, I love your explanation to this and how you actually laid these markers out because they're so important in today's time. And when you think about our community, and I think about the
Mm.
mental health of our black men, what are some things that our black men, those that really, really are high on the emotional side, how can what are some of the things that they can do to make things a little bit easier and a little bit better so that they don't get into those situations? Because I've noticed that there's a lot of high packed situations that happen from the emotional perspective that should not really be happening. But I mean, that's not me, so I can't say that. But what are some of the things that they can actually learn about this?
Man, the best soft, so I'm going to use this term called soft skills. Soft skills, right? When I wrote Empathy Has No Rank, it is a military edition. It is for the military mind, or CEOs, anybody that's leading people, right? Empathy to me is the one sure skill that will literally even out the playing field as it relates to humans, as it relates to men, understanding that if you are trying to have any type of relationship, professional, personal, whatever, you must first see them, as an equal. I'm not talking equal in society as it relates to, we both should get up and lift this crane together. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about equal as far as you have a name, I have a name. You have feelings, I have feelings. You have experiences, I have experiences. How do we meet that at um, a base level, right? Because the thing about empathy is you're learning or understanding how a person is feeling for the most part, right? So you are understanding their emotions, meaning you're stepping out of your shoes, stepping into theirs. So the ability to feel as another individual is empathy. Men, what men would have to do is get comfortable with feeling as another individual. Okay. Not for, which is sympathy. Sympathy is feeling for an individual.
Right.
It has its place. I'm not knocking sympathy, but empathy to me brings it to at least the eye level of we can have a conversation about whatever it is. Because most of the time when you see men actually expressing their emotions, wearing their emotions on their sleeve, you'll hear people say that. That's emotional dysregulation. Okay. I'm not angry, I'm just passionate. That's emotional dysregulation. It's emotional dysregulation, And so when you start to realize, like, man, I need to know how to read a room. I need to know how to understand that this is their emotion. Right. Not trying to identify with mine. Right. Let me see what I can jump on. If you're listening to react, if you will, then we already know, no, you're not being empathetic. You have to come to an understanding of situation. When you're able to do that, I learned this, honestly, when I was in my doctorate program. I created an initiative, which was a empathy certification program for police academies. All right. Now, when I went through my doctorate program, this is at the time when George Floyd, all of that stuff was rampant. COVID about to come is making this. Well, COVID was here. It was actually here. And I thought that this would be a great time to focus on this initiative of, hey, because I was curious, are police officers, is the profession of policing, is it creating a lack of empathy, or people who lack empathy go to that type of job? That's essentially what I wanted to find out, right? So I created a empathy certification program for all police academies, where they educate them on the power of empathy and how to utilize empathy. And granted, I get it, in that type of work environment, Some people can manipulate that. Some people can use that against you as police officers. So I totally get that, right? But let me tell you what happened on one time when I was on I got to ride in a squad car with a police officer who went through the program. Okay. Now he was not an academy. He wasn't a cadet. He had already been a police officer, but he willingly volunteered to come into the program, which was awesome. I went out with him one night. We are driving. He stops the car. He sees this tall black male walking down the street, walking on the side. It's like 10 something at night. It's nighttime though. He said, and I'm gonna change the name of this person, but he was like, "Is that Trevor?" It was a different name, but he said, "Is that Trevor?" He said, "Hold on. Now this is a Caucasian too, right?" So I'm in the car. I see him go up to this guy. He stops. He calls his name. The guy turns around. They's talking and everything. And the last thing I saw him do was pat him on the shoulders, like, like, go ahead, get home or whatever. So the guy starts running or whatever. And I was like, I'm curious as to how you know from the back of him that was true.
That was, yes.
I mean, he straight up told me, he said, "I know that walk anywhere. And I know his mother." You see? Now, I'm not saying, had he not had that type of interaction with him, to know his name, to know his walk, to know his mother, to get to know him, all of these kind of things, I'm not saying that cop would have put his face in the, roughed him up or, been all anxious with him or whatever have you. But that is what empathy looks like. Recognizing like, when you know them on a first name basis, it's very hard to put their face in the sand or the dirt. It's very hard to use excessive force on somebody that you know their name and their parents' name. What? And I knew right then and there, okay, I'm on to something here. That my job, at least in that capacity, was you can graduate from the academy knowing better. Whether you choose to do it, now the police can get you. Now it ain't I didn't know no better. Can't say that no more. You see? Right. So I took that same initiative as well as, and when I wrote Empathy Has No Rank, as a leader in the military, I was a flight commander. I was in a very, my unit was very, very dope. The whole crew was dope, But I know for a fact I lacked empathy. I know for a fact I lacked empathy. And it was just a matter of time before it got turned around on me, to whereas I could once sit there and blame people to say, "Hey, I ain't know no better," or whatever have you. Or the way I was doing things, I see I have to learn a different way. Okay. So in my mind, as a man, I'm sitting there like, if I struggle with that and I'm in a leadership position, I know other officers are. So that's why I wrote the book. And I in chapter 7, I straight up talked about, as men, oftentimes, well, I said as leaders, but I was really referring to using a male example there, that I know for a fact that we lack empathy because the world looks at us to produce. When you are producing every single day, you're expected to produce. You must understand, I don't care if you're working for daggone Google, working for daggone, it was a situation that came out with Amazon, how they treat their workers and stuff. When you are just producing, and that's all you're known for, recognized for, is production, you will by default lack empathy. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter what I see you. I see that you came for this job. You asked to be here. I need you to perform. I need you to produce, kind of thing. So our society is created to exploit that in so many different ways. So men, naturally, if we're hearing from we're young that we have to go out there and, let's say, be providers, which I thought providing, I think it's a different narrative to that, something that's coming out in my book in the future that I've been taking notes on, and what a provider and a protector actually should be. But let's just go with it that society said, no, you have to go out there and produce. When you are producing, they don't care about your feelings. They don't care about what kind of day you're having. They're not caring about, oh my God, you had this happen, you had this going on, you got this going on. Nobody in the production assembly line, if you will, is caring about that. You want to show up because we have to produce. That mentality lives in men. But I'm going to challenge this in that men oftentimes they use cognitive empathy more so than what we get credit for. Because you have cognitive empathy, then you have effective empathy. Effective empathy is I'm going to sit through these emotions with you.
Mm-hmm.
Cognitive empathy is I'm going to understand what your emotional strain is, then we're going to figure out how to solve it.
Mm-hmm.
Most men oftentimes try to figure out how to best solve. All right, what we're going to do about it. Here's what we can do. Da, 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 da. That way doesn't work all the time. You actually need both cognitive and effective empathy. You have to use both. Because guess what? That person may already know what they need to do, but they just need to process.
Right.
You got to be willing to sit through it, you know? So I think, for one, if we're empathetic with ourselves in understanding our emotions, understanding that I'm feeling this way because it's a deep-rooted hatred there for me, and I have to take accountability and responsibility for that. If we practice it ourselves, it is going to be easy to practice it towards somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
You see? So that
Right.
soft skill is a learned behavior.
Mm-hmm.
The behavior has to come before the belief.
Mm-hmm.
People think they need motivation to practice a behavior. No, the military figured this out a long time ago. I don't need you to have a belief. I need the behavior first. And as you do that in repetition, it starts to seep into your subconscious.
Yes.
Until that becomes now your shut off, your autopilot now. Once you start seeing the outcomes, then you become a believer.
Mm-hmm.
See? Now it starts to work, but the discipline has to be there first. So that's one soft skill that I would say for most men to manage and harness their emotion. And I talk about it in Managing Emotions Naturally. That's what I'm talking about a lot of times. I introduce empathy. I introduce emotional intelligence with self-awareness, relationship management, self-care, all of these different things. But I break it down in such a way to help men understand it starts with you.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that soft skill. Look at empathy and start applying it. Don't care how it feels. May feel
Just do it.
Just do it. Watch what happens after time. But you have to be present. That's another thing. We live in autopilot. So when they talk about Rockefeller's education system and how they wanted us in that assembly line type of thought process, we're going to teach you what we want you to teach you. That's what I want to teach you, which is why that formal education piece, they may be onto something. That it only taught us how to listen and follow orders, not to think for ourselves. Right. But when you look at that in that assembly line, and you used to doing the same thing all the time, you're in autopilot mode. Mm-hmm. When you're talking about changing a new behavior, you have to be in present.
Yes.
Autopilot. Yes. There is the difficulty. That's why they're struggling. It's the present. It's being in the present moment is what changes the behavior, because you are aware of how you feel, the actions you're doing. You're aware of all of that. When you're in autopilot, you are living in reaction mode. Okay. Mm-hmm. And that's when men oftentimes are living in reaction mode, because everything about their being is, what can you do for me? Yep. That is just the dynamic. I know, and maybe some women don't want to hear this, and I get it, but society looks at men as a whole. When I say society, I'm talking about men and women look at men. What you can do for me. Yep. Do you know what that's like to know? I walk out the door. That's all people. My wife is a soon-to-be lieutenant colonel in the United States Army. Active duty. Okay. She does her thing. Right. I'm retired. I get it. You know, it is what it is. Right. But at the same time, even walking down the street, if my wife made 10 times more than me, society's still going to put the emphasis on me. Yes. Yes. It don't matter what you're making. It don't matter. None of that matters. Society is something we are just embraced. So I tell people, when we talk about embracing it, that means recognizing what it is. We understand what it could be, what it even should be. What is it though? Society's going to see him and just have these expectations, just what it is. Yep. And when a man knows that silently, they walk in pain. So that's why the emotions are on the sleeve, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. That's where I'm just passionate. That's where that is. Okay, that's where it lies. It's so much pent up in there. Mm-hmm. There's only so much you can suppress before it comes out in behavior. Okay, wow. So by the time a man make it to manhood, yes. Mm-hmm. Can he suppress anymore? maybe not. I don't know. But I almost for certain would tell you when I'm in sessions or even when I'm just talking to people, you can tell when it's coming from a place of pain. We have normalized it. When you are built to produce, everything else is second class.
Right.
I don't know. I think we see this so much with athletes where it's like, yo, get out there on the field and perform. We want to be entertained. We don't know what the heck that person going through until we find out, when they done did something, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
Right. In this loss of life or whatever it may be. Then we start understanding all this other stuff happening. It's like, sheesh. Who? There's one sex out of the two that's buried with that expectation at the day they were born. So we gotta have some empathy about it. Let me just understand. I ain't gotta agree. I ain't even going through it myself. But let me just understand. And as men, we definitely have to do that for one another. Right? We have to understand emotion just to understand it. I think a lot of people think understand means to do something. No, understand just means I can replay back. I can articulate what it is you're feeling. And most of the time, it's those 5 universal buttons that I express or explain in my book, explain in my gauntlet. That's what the Gauntlet Within is about. That's what my 5-button framework is about. That's what the workbook is about. Is that oftentimes it's these emotions that we have, these buttons that we created, because at one point in time, this button was not there. But based on that experience and the fact that I didn't know how to process those emotions, forms a button. So every time it's pushed, oh, you're going to get this work. That's what's coming out. So just think, if that button was created at 5, 6 years old, and here you are, 45 years old, for 39 years, you've been reacting that way. This is what we're seeing from most people, from men especially, because it does come out looking more aggressive. Instead of looking at empathetic person, cry for help. See, that man don't really want to do that. He don't really want to act that way. At the end of the day, he ain't come out the womb that way. What the freak happened? What happened? You see, once you start respecting at that base level, game over. TV can't control you. Social media can't control you. Movies, Disney, none of that stuff can control you. Once you realize, this is on me. This is me, right? So empathy, for one, me personally, that is the one thing that humbled the heck out of me, was understanding how to apply empathy. Not just learning what it is and regurgitate, how to actually apply it. There are certain skills when it comes to active listening, when it comes to reframe. There are certain skills that come about. And I teach these things in my workbook. I teach these things. There are certain skills that come about that you must learn. Learning it, but then applying it. Most people will agree that the best education in this world is experience. Now, I agree that yes, that is true, because you have to apply what you learn. So it's not enough to be college educated. If I never applied it, am I educated in it? I don't have no experience, right? How many people graduate with a degree and never apply what it is they learn? You cannot say you're educated in that. So to sit there and say, I know what empathy is, yes, but do you know how to apply it? If you know how to apply it, what's the outcome that you've had? You see, now you become a believer because you have the outcome that's in your desire, in your best interest, right? You're still going to go through pain. Pain is inevitable. It's regular. We all go through pain. But I think when you don't apply what you learn, especially when you know the skills, now you're choosing to suffer. And there's the biggest issue that we tend to fall in that category as men. We're choosing to suffer. It icks me when I hear a person say, I know all about that. Okay, you learned it. Do you actually apply it though?
Right. That's the thing. I want to ask you this because, Oh my God. I mean, this is primarily, this is like a master class, but I do have to ask you this.
Mhm.
If we can, let's flip this on its head and come from the perspective of women in that same situation.
Oh, yeah.
How can they be better controlled or be in a better sense of being when their reactions sometimes are all can be over the top as well?
So it's a twofold to this, though. It is twofold, and I know people are not going to like some of this talk right up, but this is my understanding and what I've witnessed with my own eyes and experienced in my own life. Okay, our society have created an environment where expressing emotions looks more appropriate on the non-threatening one. If we hear, sorry for my emotions, it's that time of the month, we weaponize something on one end, but then we look at the other end, and for most men, we'd be like, you know what? Yeah, I mean, no, she's just emotional. It's like our regular vocabulary. That's not normal. That's not how it's supposed to be, right? So when I look at, and I run the same, I have an academy, both of them, Academy for Men, and then Her Lifestyle, which is healthy, emotional, regulated lifestyle, right? Same exact jargon. I just use different scenarios, different reasoning for women and men, right? So I know that when the same goes for women, it's the same thing that applies to women as well, that emotionally, to give somebody, to relinquish that, your emotions, something that's rooted in your own experiences, and to willingly give that over to a stranger, to give that over to even give that over to your spouse. Okay. This is where they talk about safe space. This is where that I should feel comfortable in my own space, that I included this other individual to be a part of. And rightfully so. You are absolutely right. You should be okay to process whatever's going on without the other person getting offended by it, right? But it's a certain way that you have to process. Processing starts with, hey, I need to be empathetic for myself. I need to give myself grace, because there are a lot of experiences that came into my life that I had to respond to the best way I knew how. And some of those ways wasn't healthy. I have to acknowledge that. To not perpetuate that, to not continue that, I must address things in a certain way, or a way that I would want to be addressed, regardless if I'm talking to a man or talking to a woman, right? Mm-hmm. But if society, because again, it's about exploitation. They love when men express themselves. Again, we can get money for that, if you will. I'm serious, King, right? We know that the prison industry, we understand the money that's being made in that, especially the privatized prisons, right? I don't care if a man didn't control himself and he's on the internet. We got phones, they done caught it. Somebody can upload that, get more views. YouTube gives money. Everything is about exploiting. And now we're doing that with mental health. We're exploiting people with true mental health issues. Now, women are getting exploited. Their behavior is being exploited. That is the thing with EQ conversations, why I'm not going that route. And I get it. It's going to be the long haul. I understand. I'm not going to be in it for the clicks. I totally get it. I ain't exploiting a freaking thing, not in that sense, right? Mm-hmm. But it's a reason for that. It's a reason why that's happening. So I would say even for women, when it comes to emotional responsibility, when we talk about healthy emotional regulation, we still are talking about emotional intelligence and what it entails, and how you treat yourself, how you treat your body. Like I told you before, there's only 3 things you have 100%, and I kid you not, 100% control over. Okay, for the most part, most people, all right, is what you put in your body, what you do to your body, and how you respond to your emotions. Mm-hmm. That is it. Everything else, somebody else got some daggone say in it, you know? Mm-hmm. But those 3 things you have 100% responsibility and accountability for. Okay. Mm-hmm. So when I see women, when I'm talking to women, especially about emotional intelligence, again, the word sounds good. Can you apply it though? Mm-hmm. It's the same that applies to them. They've been taken advantage of as well. They've been exploited as well. Their emotions have been neglected, rejected, abandoned, right? All of this stuff still applies. But then when it gets to that sociological level, where now society's got to judge it. They say, my wife is 5'2", right? I'm 5'10". I'm not a tall person. I'm taller than my wife. I'm bigger than my wife, right? Even if my wife is wailing out on me, ain't nobody coming. You see? They still looking at the man to think, responsibility you have, because they know, look at me. Doesn't matter. So I'm saying, yes, for even women, taking that same accountability and responsibility to understand me being regulated brings about peace in my environment, brings about peace in my life. I'm talking about how they respond to people, right? How they react to certain things. They still have to take that same level of accountability. It's still there. So that doesn't change, right? So we don't treat them, and that's why I say the equal. Yes, when they talk about men and women being equal, we should be in value.
Right.
Not in roles, but in value. Yes. If I'm the steering wheel, damn it, my wife's the headlights.
There you go.
Valuable. Different roles, right? Two totally different roles. So when it comes to applying empathy, it goes both ways there. Right? It goes both ways. So that's the same exact thing I would tell women as well is, hey, when it comes to your emotions, when it comes to how you're going to respond to your emotions, yes, those soft skills that they call them soft skills, they call it feminine in some ways. That is something that, yes, women should be capitalizing off of. It is a unwritten skill that's either we assigned it to women or women biologically just have it. But I understand, this is where I say empathy comes into play, because when it comes to a woman, oftentimes when they're preaching that women are getting out there being successful, going out there and doing what they do, my wife, I told you, Army, Lieutenant Colonel, Major Select, if you will. But very proud of her, by the way. But nonetheless, my wife works in a male-dominated environment.
Yes, she does.
Listen, to be competitive in this world, you do have to take up a masculine energy. That is the truth. I don't care what nobody, to be competitive in our society, you have to take on a masculine energy. So if more women are now in that independent realm now, doing things themselves, all this kind of stuff, if you will, you have to, in our society, I'm saying, the way it's created now. All right. I understand we've had matriarchal societies in the past and all. I can't prove none of that. I'm just going by what was said. Okay, about that. But nonetheless, today, right now, in order to go out there and compete to the best of your ability, you have to take on and put on the masculine energy. It is very hard to turn that off. It's just the truth of the matter. So if we hearing women be so aggressive and all of this kind of stuff, look at the environment. Look at the competitive nature of our environment. You ain't about to get out there. A man don't take on, most men is what I'm saying, but a man don't take on feminine energy to go out there and compete.
Exactly. Because it's not going to work.
It's not going to work. Not in this society. They telling you sleep when you die.
Yep.
What? When I sit there and think that any of that, when you get out there, you got to get ugly. And this is why I say the lack of empathy is there, because we're built to exploit. That's what capitalism is, right? So we have to check ourselves, and that's why I went the human connection route. That's why my private practice is E-Connect, EQ-NECT, emotional intelligence, connection. Because I see no matter how much people compete out there, no matter how successful they are or how bad they are, they all crave human connection. Every single one of them, it always comes back to connection. That is something that our society cannot enforce, if you will. We have to get it on our own. But if we're willing to get it on our own, we have to make certain sacrifices. If we make certain sacrifices, there are certain beliefs we have to have.
Yes, sir.
You see, one of them is empathy. We have to have the belief that I should see you as an equal. At least that, before I go to judge your character because I want to control how I see you. You see, so I gotta pace. I gotta put titles on you. You see, I gotta judge you. That keeps me safe. You know, because I don't want to deal with abandonment or rejection or whatever have you. So I do these things to distance myself. But the natural part of me crave human connection. I really want to connect with people. I want to have meaningful relationships with people. I don't know how to do it. Because if I step out my door, I'm being exploited. That is a fact. We just have to be mindful of that and recognize the society we live in. You getting those hours in for work, you spending more time at work producing than taking self-care. You know how to neglect yourself. So if you know how to neglect yourself, you really think you're not going to neglect a whole nother human being? That goes both ways.
Yes.
We both are guilty of that. Right? So for women, just to answer that question, for women, yes, the same applies when it comes to emotional responsibility. Emotional accountability, yes, just acknowledging, hey, I did that. I reacted in such a way because the same way you said that, my dad used to say the same thing. He never had good intentions when he said that. So I taught myself, defend myself. Society's gonna be okay with it. You whooping up on a man, hey man, that's you. That's your fault. Ain't nobody coming to save him. If it was the other way around, we already know what's coming.
Right.
Men, women, law, everything coming out the woodwork with that. So part of that is because society has said, well, because you're not the more threatening species than a man, we'll let you express your emotions the way they are. Well, you don't understand. The way a man's fist is equivalent to a woman's mouth. Because she can straight up take your character and destroy you just like that. You'll heal from a black eye. The internal wound is still there. That's how powerful it is. So we both have a responsibility to one another. Treat each other with respect. Right? Just treat with respect. I respect you regardless of what's going on. Because I respect myself. I can empathize. I can understand that if you're lashing out, it may be a cry for help. I don't know what happened in your day. I don't know what you've been through. That is something that we all universally need to actually, I think, cultivate and implement in our daily life to the point where it becomes autopilot now. And that's not being passive. That's not being passive. I'm not saying put yourself in harm's way. I'm not saying just let yourself willingly be taken advantage of by people. No. What I'm saying is, whatever they do, if they press a button on you, it is your button. You cannot blame them. You can't look at them. You made me feel insecure. No, they didn't make you feel no kind of way.
Yep. So let me just say
that experience based off of your
in closing, we could do this all night, but we definitely.
I'm telling you, look,
we got to have you back. In closing, what are some words of wisdom and encouragement that you have for our audience? Tell them how to connect with you via social media, including your website, how to get the books, all of those good things.
Sure. And that's something, I need to email that stuff to you as well, because it's so the one thing I would say to people, it is something that my apparel line, this apparel line is actually named after it, really. I call it Air Apparel, but it's EAYR. Emotional accountability is your responsibility. Simply put, you take responsibility for your emotions. Stop placing it on other people. Stop thinking that other people are going to fix something that your behavior, think about this, your behavior created it. Whatever you did, whatever your response was, created the ripple effect. That's the power our energy has. Taking responsibility of that shows ownership. It humbles you. It definitely makes you more empathetic because you recognize how flawed you are. Instead of always saying that we're human, we all make mistakes. No, we make poor choices. And for those poor choices, it's very hard for us to forgive ourselves when we make poor choices. It is hard because we recognize I could have went right or left with that. Do you know how hard it is to know going right is the best way and you still go left? How do you live with yourself after that? For any of us, myself included. So we don't learn how to forgive ourselves. And if we ain't learning how to forgive ourselves, then yes, it's going to be very hard to forgive people. You're going to have unrealistic expectations. You're going to be setting the bar so high you can't even measure it. We don't know how to forgive ourselves in that. So emotional accountability is only your responsibility. EAYR. That is my thing. And I kid you not, when you do that, when you take responsibility of that, you definitely going to leave this world better than the way you found it. 100%. Okay. And as far as getting in contact with me, my website is www.econnect. That's EQNECT.com. Or you can email me if you have any questions or whatever have you on info@econnect.com. And then also my I have what do you call it? Look at me. See, that's what the 48-year-old brain does. I have a Instagram as well at Dr. Raheem Lay. So definitely, if you got any questions about anything, I'll send it to you. And my link tree is on there as well. So please feel free to check it out. Critique. My podcast is coming as well. So I've already done 2 seasons of my podcast, but I reinvented my podcast, if you will. So that's going to be coming in the next fiscal year. Fiscal year, that's such a military term. October of this year is when I released my new initiative with my podcast called EQ Conversations. So you'll see it streaming. It's already streaming on all different podcast platforms. But yeah, that's me. That's me in a nutshell there.
The books.
Yes. So, so The Gauntlet Within, that is my latest book. It is focusing on what I've been talking about as far as these universal 5 buttons that we must catch a hold of. I give scenarios in there as well, taking the 5 different lives and applying and letting you see exactly how a button is developed, how it's cultivated throughout time, and how the responses are. Now, if you're interested in learning about your buttons, I also, again, you can go to my my IG page, if you will, and you can click the link. There's a link in there, Linktree link in there that'll help, that'll direct you to taking your free assessment. Okay, at no cost, but you can literally answer 12 questions very quickly, and it's going to give you the response on what your dominant button is. And whatever that dominant button is, you take that information, and I have my workbook, which is the 5-button reset workbook, that's available on Amazon, that's available on my website as well, that teaches you how to reset your buttons. You cannot delete, erase, or get rid of a button, okay? There is no such thing as that. To get rid of it is to say, I didn't have the experiences. Now, unless somebody blocks your mental and take your memory, right? These experiences are yours. So the best you could do is reset. Okay, that is another thing. And the last thing I'll say about that as well is focusing on the healing aspect. You hear this word a lot on social media. I've heard people use healed, which is no such thing. Healing is like becoming a believer. It is ongoing. When you become, if you believe in Christ, and let's say you give your life to Christ, it's no I believed, right? You are a believer. That means you practice it every day. Guess what? You would have to practice these button resets every single day, right? But learning it, I kid you not, learning it, you can learn it in 30 days. You can learn the skill to reset the button in 30 days, but you must practice it every single day. Okay, so that is something that, again, you can find your dominant button if you are interested in the workbook and learn to reset your buttons. Okay, and these 5 buttons, I didn't even name them, if you will, but I like the word. We believe in acronyms coming from the military, right? So crafts, right? CRAFS. C stands for control, R stands for rejection, A stands for abandonment, F stands for failure, S stands for shame. I break them all down, not only in my book, The Gauntlet Within, but also you understand exactly how it works in the workbook. But each of these lives that's in The Gauntlet Within that I'm going to be breaking down, each of them carry one of these buttons. We have all 5, but I'm explaining how one of these buttons show up more times than not than the other buttons, right? But I also explain these buttons in a sociological, in a biological, and a psychological manner as well. So you get to really experience and take a deep dive from a clinical side with the right vocabulary, not a clinic vocabulary, but to give you a better understanding how your emotions and how those behaviors, why they keep repeating. That is something that comes out in this book as well. So The Gauntlet Within is my latest book. It gets released September 3rd. I have it in audio. I had to hear my voice read this book was amazing, by the way. But I have it in audio. I have it in paperback. I have it in ebook as well. And I also have it in hard copy. And when you get on my website, I also have autographed copies as well. If you want an autographed copy, I could totally I'll send you that from me directly. I will send that to you as well. So that's The Gauntlet Within. And then Empathy Has No Rank. It is streaming. I mean, I have it in ebook and I have it in hardcover as well. And it's on Amazon. So I got a really good positive feedback from that for leaders in the military, as well as I had some other individuals who took that book and was able to apply, the knowledge from that book about empathy and how to show empathy in a leadership role. So definitely those 2 books, and of course my workbook, the 5-button framework, reset framework. The workbook is on my page as well as on Amazon.
So I'm as I get ready to close, I'm going to close with the monologue. But before I get into that,
okay.
Do you have a few minutes after I close the show? Do you have a few minutes to stick around?
Heck yeah. Oh yeah.
I want to thank each and every one of you for being here with us tonight, and I hope that you all learned the message that Dr. Lay actually laid out for us, especially when it comes to both male and female when we're talking about emotions, because the things that he spoke of are very, very important. And when we have him back, we'll have a whole lot more of an in-depth conversation, because this was just the top layer, as I understand. And so there's a whole lot to go into this, but this is also something that we need to start practicing, especially in our community, if we want to make it better, to make sure that community unity and building and expansion is the main goal. So 100%. For those of you that are watching on all of our channels, especially our YouTube channels, if you have not yet subscribed and enabled all notifications, I ask if you would please support us by subscribing, enabling all notifications, so that every time we do go live with our shows, you're able to watch the shows, but you're also able to go back and watch the episodes of each and every professional that has been here, that's laid out groundwork to help each and every individual, not only to be better within yourselves, but to be better within your community and to help your community in its growth. I'm going to close with this monologue before we get out of here. Well, so as we go into this, tonight was not a television interview. Tonight was a masterclass. And if you were paying attention, and I believe you were, you walked away from this conversation with something you cannot put down, because it is about you. It is about the 5 buttons inside of you that have been quietly running your relationships, your choices, your leadership, and your legacy. And now you know their names. The names are control, rejection, abandonment, failure, and shame. You know them And because you know them, you know you have the power to change them. Dr. Raheem Lay is not simply a clinician with a framework. He is a man who looked at the emotional silence of Black America and decided to speak. He served this country in uniform for 23 years and then came home and kept serving. This time with a therapy couch, a doctoral degree, a pen, and a platform. He built eConnect so that healing would be accessible. He built the Academy for Men and the Academy for Her lifestyle so that community could be a place of transformation, not just survival. He wrote Empathy has no rank and place, empathy on the required reading list of one of the most powerful armies in the world. And now on September 3rd, 2026, just days from now, he releases The Gauntlet Within. Get that book, read it, work it, let it work on you. And I want to honor the soldiers Dr. Lay stands on. His brother, Professor Corrigan, a man of scholarship and an example who showed a young Raheem Lay that Black academic excellence is not an exception. It is an inheritance. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who told this nation and this world that justice begins on the inside, that the content of our character matters, that the time to do what is right is always now. Dr. Lay is living proof that those legacies are not history, they are instructions. So here's your call to action. American Black and White family, get the books, subscribe to EQ Conversations, follow eConnect, find your academy, whether that is the Academy for Men or for the Academy for Her lifestyle. And if you are a licensed clinician or coach, mark November 1st, 2026 on your calendar because the 5-button framework clinical and professional coaching licensing program launches that day. And this is your invitation to become part of a movement that is changing lives one framework at a time. I'm your host, Charles Zachary King. This has been America in Black and White, Season 4, Episode 137. Until the next time, stay grounded, stay present, and stay in the work because the gauntlet within is waiting and you were built to win it.